we're very pleased again to have Bill Doyle, the CEO, Dredging Contractors of America, for an inside-out view of the challenges and the opportunities in the U.S. dredging market. Bill, I don't think you or DCA needs any introduction to this audience, but as it's the just start of 2025, it's always a good time to catch up when you reflect, if you've had time to reflect on 2024. It's obviously been a very busy time in the U.S. dredging market.
Right.
Can you just kind of reflect quickly for us on the most significant jobs or awards that were completed, the most interesting new tonnage to enter the market, or again, we'll get into the politics a little bit deeper
Right.
later, but the most significant political or legislative developments.
Yeah, what I would say is that, we're at that point where 2022 was a very tough year for the dredging industry. And when I say it was a tough year for the dredging industry, because you were still in the throes of COVID, okay? And the Army Corps of Engineers wasn't able to get as many of the jobs out that year that should have ordinarily been put out to the private sector industry. And that carried on, till about the first quarter of 2023. So that rebound really started in, we're coming into May of 2023 and all the way through 2024. Okay. So there was a lot of projects that were put out by the Army Corps of Engineers and on the private sector side, because you have energy companies that privately own their terminals and docks and want to attach it to a federal channel. That's on them. So you had a lot of work that came out in the dredging industry the past year. What we're seeing still, though, Greg, is there's a lot of new construction. What I say is dredging construction. Okay, you've got the Houston Ship Channel. That's big. You've got Corpus Christi. That's big. You've got all up and down the East Coast. Virginia wants to go somewhere in the range of 55 to 57 feet, depth. So there's a lot of work that's going on in the deepening and widening and the maintenance dredging. And we also had your beach nourishment, okay, your coastal restoration that went on over the past. That's all going to continue into 2025.
You've already covered a couple of them, but when you look ahead to 2025, what do you see as the primary drivers for dredging business in the U.S. in the coming years?
It's going to continue to be in the ports, okay? New York and New Jersey, they just came out with their 50-year plan. So that's going to require more dredging. You're going to see ports that are going to be built in Delaware. There's going to be more dredging there. So if you look at the Port of Wilmington, Delaware, they've got to get through their environmental impact statement, and get that done. That will require dredging. Brand new terminal, probably $1 billion worth of investment in that terminal. It's going to require dredging. You've got Trade Point Atlantic in Baltimore, right? That's with MSC and Trade Point Atlantic. That's going to be somewhere in the range of 6 million cubic yards of dredge material before that opens. You've got Louisiana. Louisiana wants to build a container terminal. Well, that's going to require dredging. Then you have your maintenance dredging, and we're always on the lookout for what happens with Mother Nature and things of that nature, because right now, if you take a look at the weather in the Midwest and coming down and across the country, we're getting more snow precipitation this year, more than we've had in probably the past 4 years. So we're on the lookout for, is the Mississippi River going to boil this year? Is the Southwest Pass? Is the Carrollton Gauge going to go up? We're always on the lookout for that and planning with the Army Corps of Engineers on contracting and making sure that we have dredges available. We're going to see a lot of that, and a big focus under the Army Corps of Engineers, and I would say your coastal communities, is getting a handle on this beneficial use of dredge material. Don't waste the material that you excavate for the ocean floor if you can reuse it for coastal restoration, rebuilding the barrier islands in, let's just say, the Chesapeake Bay. Use that material because it is valuable, and we use that on the Mississippi River, whether it's on the dikes, land reclamation. And that's going on up and down the East Coast, Gulf Coast, and even on the West Coast now, where we no longer call dredge material spoils. It is dredge material that can be used for purposes that enhance the environment and coastal communities.
Bill, my next question is in regards to the fleet. And it's actually quite funny because just this morning, I had not realized my colleague Joe Keefe, Marine News, had been in contact with you, and I saw a big, beautiful chart of every dredger that's being built currently in the United States right now. So I don't want to overly beat a dead horse on that, but when you look at the fleet as it stands today, and you look at the order book as it stands, I guess, can you just give us some insights on, are we balanced? Are we getting enough new dredgers in there? And just in general, what's your feeling as far as the order level activity for new dredgers in the US?
I think the order level is appropriate. Now, you will hear, I'm the guy that has to manage competitors. So the Dredging Contractors of America is an organization of companies that fiercely compete with each other. And I'll give you a little insight here. If you're a dredging company and you're one of the leaders, you're going to say, we don't need any more dredges. They're going to say you don't want to need, you've got all the dredges. So what you do is you do see a balance of the companies that, and it's well balanced on who's building dredges, whether it's a cut ahead suction dredge, a hopper dredge, or clamshell dredge. And then you've got hopper barges, that barge industry, what gets built up in Corn Island, in Indiana, when you float them down the river. I mean, that's all going on. And it's a move, because you always see when the dredges come out and they're built, they're larger than the generation before. So a company, when they build that dredge, they're adding more capacity. So is that added capacity, does that obviate the need for laying up an older vessel, scrapping an older vessel, selling it somewhere else that doesn't compete in the United States? So those decisions are always being made. Now, what we're going to see somewhere in the first or second quarter is the largest hopper dredge ever built in the United States is coming online, and that's the Frederick Hop by Manson Construction. That's being built down in Brownsville, Texas. So they're going through the dock trials right now. It's a beauty. I mean, it's a beautiful ship. And that will be coming out. The 15,000 cubic yards is a significant, so that's going to take up a lot of, that will be able to do some beach work like you've never seen beach work on what it can do and what it can move. We've also seen an uptick in the clamshell market. Curtin Maritime is one of those companies. So they came out with that new DB Avalon a couple of years ago. They've done the Houston Ship Channel. They just finished up in Puerto Rico, and now they're in Chesapeake Bay. So they're doing the Baltimore approach channels. That vessel with the battery system backup, the amount of fuel that they save on that vessel because of the system that Martin Curtin built. Martin Curtin is the owner of Curtin Maritime, is significant. Now he's announcing, and it should be coming out shortly. He started putting it out on social media. They're going to build another clamshell twice the size of that. Okay, so you see that clamshell market, and the clamshell market is something where, environmentally, depending upon the states, you control turbidity better. Turbidity is when, you cloud it up. So if you have a hopper dredge, you fill the hopper dredge up, the hopper is filled when the mud gets to the top and all of the water is flowing off the side. Well, that creates a lot of turbidity, right? Clamshell, you can control it. So it depends on the market, where you are, what you're doing on that. Same thing with the cutter heads down in the Gulf. We're seeing cutter head suction dredges. Mike Hooks just built a new cutter head. There's more of those being built and more in the pipeline coming. So I see it as a healthy shipbuilding market. A lot of shipyards are being used around the country, and that's a good thing for the shipyards.
Bill, again, you live and breathe the politics as much as anyone. And later this month, obviously, President Trump once again takes the helm at the White House, and I'm certainly not looking to take this into a political discussion, death spiral. But as you know, different administrations, different priorities, all have an impact on this business and this business for the coming 4 years. So when you look at the incoming Trump administration, what can our viewers expect in terms of the dredging business in the US?
Well, we're excited about the Trump administration coming in. All of my, dredges, all of them see this as, okay, we've got a president coming in that is not anti-Jones Act, has made statements that he wants a robust shipbuilding industry. That's good for everybody in the Jones Act. He may have more of a focus on the military side and the repair side, but that's good for everyone. Also, what you have is the hands of Congress. That's in the hands of Louisianans, you know? So you've got Mike Johnson as the Speaker of the House. You know, that's huge, right? And, you know, the folks in Louisiana and Texas, there are a lot of them in areas and committees of influence. And those states, Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, you know, they live and die by dredging, right? They need dredging. They understand dredging. They understand the shipbuilding industry because a lot of them have what we used to call, when I sailed, bicycle shops, repairing up and down the Mississippi River and in the bayous, these shipyards and repair yards. So, you know, it's a big help for us to have that foresight. We know what's coming, okay? We know we're going to be supported. Now, we have to do our work on our side. You know, we have to keep a competitive industry. If you look at the Army Corps of Engineers last year, 56 different companies won awards from the Army Corps of Engineers. You know, that keeps prices, that keeps competition. You know, that keeps, you know, everything on the level when they compete at that time. I mean, we look at what we saved in taxpayer dollars was $707 million, nearly $1 billion, because of competitive bidding. That's what was saved in 2023. So, you know, with Trump coming in, President Trump, we're excited. We know that we have to do our work with him to keep our issues at the forefront and to show the positive story of the dredging in the Jones Act. So that's what we're gonna do. That's what we did the last time when President Trump was in office. We're gonna continue it. You know, he's pro-business. He's pro-industrial. He's pro-build American. And look, you look at the dredging and Jones Act industry, American owned, American built, American citizens on board those ships. So we fit right into what he's trying to do.
Absolutely. And again, Bill, I appreciate those insights. So let's switch it up from politics to Mother Nature, another unpredictable force. So when you look at weather-related issues in dredging, what do you see as the biggest drivers in the coming year?
Well, it is weather related. I mean, we're having more and more hurricanes, right? And the storm season. So we're always prepared. And with respect to the Mississippi River, you know, the Mother River, you know, we solved an issue, or at least we think we solved an issue by working with the Army Corps of Engineers 4 years ago. So what you see happening to prepare for a flood stage in the Mississippi River is, instead of contracting when an issue or when the river starts to rise, they put those contracts out in December or January and say, okay, you can do other dredging, but if the river were to go up, you have to dedicate a vessel there for that purpose of high water levels on the Mississippi and in the Southwest Pass. So the contracting mechanisms within the Army Corps of Engineers, starting at the headquarters level, right down to the district level, they did I would call it a huge paradigm shift on the way that they contract that benefits states, benefits, the local sponsors, the local communities by having vessels pre-contracted in the event. If the event doesn't happen, the dredge is already working in some other area. So we've worked that way. What I would also say, Greg, is, one of the things that, and this kind of touches on the politics and the environmental, is that we are really, really going to go after some of these regulations that we get blamed for, the dredging industry gets blamed for, on environmental windows, okay? A lot of the people out there don't understand that there's only certain times or certain periods, certain months, certain days that you can dredge in certain ports. Massachusetts is different from North Carolina, different from Georgia, different from Florida. And one of the things that we believe has been holding this up, and it's the same thing with what I would say the offshore wind industry, is the biological opinion. Biological opinion You have a Northeast biological opinion. You have a South Atlantic biological opinion. We need to get those things finalized. We need to get that into a situation where everybody knows the rules. It will expand the days that we can dredge because the science is there. The science is there that these particular types of dredges or that particular type of marine life is not there, and the dredges should be able to dredge. These things have been held up for 5 years, 6 years. And, we're not trying to do something that harms the environment for economic purposes. The science is available to allow us to dredge more days throughout the year around this country, and it's time that we have that put forward. So with respect to the recent Supreme Court decision that eliminated the Chevron deference, which gave agencies plenary power to regulate, that's something that we're going to look into. And I think industry will look into it. It's not just the dredging industry. It's the oil and gas industry. It's the offshore wind industry. Is there something that can be done better? But we really need these biological opinions. They shouldn't take 24 months. They shouldn't even take more than 12 months. I'll give you a year. But let's get the rules straight because, look, local sponsors, counties, cities who need their ports dredged, they want it dredged. And it takes a lot of time and effort when we have to explain it. We're the last people in the chain. We come when all environmental check boxes have been checked. Then we come in and we can only dredge. When you see us leaving, we're not leaving because we want to leave. It might be because the environmental window is closed and we have to leave. So that's what we're looking into, Greg.
With respect to the aging infrastructure, what do you see as the biggest impacts or the biggest points of focus in the coming year?
Yeah, I mean, you're going to see that. One of the biggest and shining moments of the dredging industry in 2024, if I could go back to it, was the Francis Scott Key Bridge. A dredge like what you saw with Cashman and Marine Contract, and when they had the Dale Pyatt, the largest, one of the largest clamshell dredges in the Western Hemisphere. That dredge turned into, an excavator of metal. All right, so that itself was a big deal, and it was the private sector industry that did that. So all of the vessels that were afloat out there, part of the dredging and marine construction industry, they cleaned it up. It was supposed to take 11 months. It took 11 weeks, and that was because of a healthy, competitive, large dredging and marine construction industry. So the infrastructure that we're looking at coming up is there's a lot of things that go on that will be beyond the control of, say, the dredges. The infrastructure is bridges, so you need air clearances. So you're going to see that there'll be a lot of marine construction. Marine construction companies will be doing the replacement of the Francis Scott Key Bridge. You're going to see bridges in Georgia that are going to get raised. You're going to see more dredging on the infrastructure side in New York and New Jersey. Even with the Bayonne Bridge now up and running, it's been up for several years. But from an infrastructure standpoint, all of the material that we dredge could be available for fill material in these infrastructure projects in and around the waterways.
When you look a little bit further out, even 10, 15 years, what do you see happening today that has the biggest potential to dramatically impact this industry in the coming, say, decade or so?
Well, I think that, if you look at the industry itself, it needs to remain competitive, right? It has to remain competitive. We're always taking hits from the Europeans. We do. They want to get into our market. And, the quickest way for them to come into the market is if we don't have an industry. So we need the shipbuilding industry. We need companies to remain in, and we need to keep reinvigorating and rebuilding our fleets. Other than that, it's going to be maintenance dredging, and I think your coastal restoration. That's going to increase. I'd also like to see the beneficial use of dredge material. More dredge material being used as opposed to being dumped in the ocean.